This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so thanks everyone for hopping on. This one's a council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. We've got a record of attendance. No one is absent with regrets. Jim, we're good to see you.
Thank you very much. It's good to be still here.
There he is.
And approval of agenda, additions or deletions. So there was an addition. I'm just gonna grab my pen from my office. Lindsay, did you just send me an addition very recently? I was on a call, so I missed it.
Tender results for the fire hall renovations.
Okay, so 9A will be tender results.
That's already on my agenda.
Yeah, mine too.
I got a copy of it.
Okay, I don't have that on mine.
It was just sent shortly after 3, I think.
Gotcha.
Your worship.
Okay, I've been on the phone, so, okay, so tender result. Anything else, folks?
Your worship, I would have an update for you in camera on the YMCA.
Okay.
Thank you,
Update.
Jeff.
I'm gonna put that under 10. Camera. Any other additions? How about, do you want me to do an update on that municipal financing program?
I was gonna ask you that anyways, Your Worship, maybe a little later when we had questions for committee chairs, if that's all right.
Gotcha, certainly. Okay, anything else, anybody? Anything at all?
Motion.
We're good?
Motion to accept the agenda with the additions.
Second.
Thank you.
So,
Second by
on that
Don.
point- Yeah.
Go ahead,
Question.
Cliff.
On that point there about the updating us, Your Worship, I heard the interview with Wade this morning from CJLS. Is that carried? Is that on your website, Wade?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
it's
You can
on.
find-
Go ahead.
So we could save time if you wanted to, just by going to the website and listening to it, Your Worship.
Sure can. Yeah. Good stuff. All right, anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 4. Contrary? Motion carried. New business, budget adjustment. Was that Jerry or Jeff? Hold on, I gotta see who's making noise. Okay, good.
Okay.
Either one of you, whoever wants to take it.
I
Go
guess
ahead,
I'll lead off. And first of all, I'll apologize. I just a couple hours ago, I got Lindsay to attach a second document, just as more information. So I'd just like to talk to that because what I sent you was the results of our all-in budget. So as you know, we go through a process with all the directors and HR, and we put everybody's wish list into the pot, and we kind of see where we're going to end up. I go through all taxes and assessments and revenue lines, and again, like we come to a bottom line. So what I sent you originally showed the bottom line of a $341,000 deficit, which we were going to have to deal with, and that sheet shows you how we're suggesting we deal with it. But what I didn't include, and I thought of later, was how we got to that point. And I thought that would be of interest to you. So if you just bear with me for a couple minutes, I want to talk to some of the highlights about how we got to the $341,000 position. So the budget is, tax rates are unchanged from last year. Assessments, residential assessments actually went up just over 2%, just under 2.25%. And the commercial is basically flat, and that stems from the library becoming non-taxable. So we did have 1.5 or 1.6 or 7% increase in commercial assessments. I'll forget the exact number. But because the library is now non-taxable, that netted that down. So we basically have a 0.09% increase in commercial assessment. So the net of that is there's about $30,000 more in tax revenue generated this year on assessments than prior years.
How much?
Oh, $30,000. In addition to that, another highlight how we got there was we added solar power revenue. So we've budgeted about $40,000 for solar power energy sales to Nova Scotia Power. We had to budget a little more for the election that happens this coming year, and had to budget an extra $15,000 in the phased-in rebate program because there will be more payouts in the coming year. I've already got notice from a few of the businesses that are signed into that program. Bit of change, and I'm sure you're all aware of the change in our IT services. So we're going through a different service provider. Comes with a little extra cost, but we think we'll be in a better spot once COVID is done and we get back to it. Budgeted an extra $30,000 into the RCMP contract, so that's up to $2.14 million now on an annual basis. I have $25,000 extra for furnishings for the RCMP. They are requesting some new lockers for their members, so that's in the budget. Fire department, the biggest change there was it has to do with the salaries and overtime because of the new contract, so there were some increases there. And I also built in $20,000 extra in the current year for them. They were looking to buy some more radio equipment, I believe it is. In building inspection, we were looking to try to hire, is it proper to say a junior inspector, Jeff? Looking to hire a second inspector anyway, planning for the retirement of our current building inspector. So we have that put in the system. In transportation, no real big changes there. Paving and patching, sidewalk repairs, those budgets are still intact. On the environmental health, there was building an extra $20,000 for maintenance line at the wastewater treatment plant for some maintenance to the actual building. I think it's the outside of the building, some caulking of windows and doors, and maybe the replacement of a door or two. But an extra $20,000 there was requested by Rob. The compost facility, not a big difference there. $10,000. I think there's a door or two that needs to be replaced there, so they asked for a little extra in the maintenance budget line, so that's in there. In planning, no change there. We still budget as though we have a full-time planner. We are advertising one, and the difference when we do not have one, we are paying consultants instead. So it kind of washes out the last couple of years for us. So we just budget for the planner. We don't worry about the consultant cost at this point. In the economic development, Scott, there was an extra $14,000 for a couple of conferences or things they were looking to do. We have some extra studies we were looking to do, so there's an extra $40,000 into studies. Doctor search at that point when I initially did this, there was no change. I was still waiting for an updated budget for that. The Mariner Center up to $118,000, so that's an increase of just over $30,000. That would be with hiring the new CEO for that center and different things they're doing there. The airport at that point when I had this update was left at the prior year funding. Community events was left at $20,000. The medical clinics, I was waiting for a new budget. The only other thing I actually built in there was we did put in the extra $15,000 for the YMCA for the study that we would be funding there, our portion of that. Recreation was left at $311,000 as our share. I was waiting for a budget from Frank for that one. When I did up this sheet, and There's a little bit of maintenance down at the waterfront to get some lights changed out that Chad had identified for the last couple of years that we put off. So that's in there as well. Last couple bits, the library funding for the library increased to 52,000 on an annual basis. That's to the regional libraries. And our school board funding increased 28,000 annually to 1.33 million for the year. Those are most of the changes, all the changes that are basically over $5,000. Everything else, a lot of small changes through phones, power, heat, lights, all those types of things. And it ended up including all that stuff included, got us to a all-in budget with our $341,000 that we're looking to figure out. So main thing to think of here, I guess, is that this is all no change budget for tax rates, and the different projects and different things we're trying to do are in the budget, and that got us to the 341. So the paper or the sheets that you should have in front of you will show at the top of the page an all-in 2021 budgeted deficit of $341,000, and that's the issue we're trying to deal with. So I broke it out to the COVID-19 adjustments. And the top, you'll see different revenue lines for D-transfer tax, transit, parking, museums, and marina gas and diesel sales, those types of things. So those are lines and amounts that we typically would get throughout the summer, except for D-transfer tax. So I reduced that by about half. There's still some houses selling, and the feeling is that some houses that don't sell through the summer, we may have a few extra sell through the fall. So we did allow for less D-transfer tax, but not the same amount, not a zero amount for the summer, put it that way. So we allowed for about $169,000 less revenue coming in because of COVID-19. But at the same time, we also have done a lot of things because of COVID-19 to reduce our expenses. So a lot of conferences have been canceled. So, go in there.
I have a question on the revenue adjustments.
Yep.
So I'm going to be asking for these numbers probably within the next week to 10 days. And I'm just wondering, oh, okay, I see now. I was just looking at the 169. I was looking at the 169. I probably haven't read this. So, for example, we don't get money for recreation because there's no programs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is that counted in there?
On our budget, we just pay $311,000 to recreation, and they would handle their budget. So when I go down further, you'll see some adjustment for that. So we don't recognize the revenue for recreation. We just have a expense line.
Okay, so here's a question. So we don't. Okay, so recreation we pay $311,000. And I'm saying recreation because it's the most obvious because we don't have summer programs.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So we pay $311,000, but they are not getting their revenues this summer. Is that going to cost us more?
Well, if they're canceling programs, they'd be canceling student hires and things as well. So
right on.
When you look at their situation, it's kind of similar to us with, say, the Sweeney's Museum. We'll collect $1,500 through the summer for revenue for the museum, but it costs us about $28,000 to have it running and open.
Yeah, so that's another one. Jeff, you were gonna.
No, I was just going to say that the recreation department would lose money on just about every program they run. So if they lose the expense along with the revenue, it brings it down overall.
It costs us less.
Costs us less. And so what we always show in our budget is the net. So Frank might have a budget of $700,000 or $800,000. maybe $100,000 in revenue expected. That comes off the top, and then the net financial need is split evenly between the town and the district. So the revenue is typically minused from the expense first, and then the net need is what we split. So we only ever show one line in our budget for recreation, and it is our half of the net need.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I didn't know if we just had a standard number regardless of what happened, or if, okay, all right. And Sweeney's Museum's another one, kind of like a wash. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Chair, sorry. Cliff,
So-
go ahead.
So on that one, they get revenues from various government student programs in the summer, I believe, do they not? Some of their positions?
Yes, they do.
And so so does the town and the municipality each qualify for so many positions and those things, or by having one rec department, does that compromise us?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, there is not, as far as Frank would know, there wouldn't be an allocation per municipality. That may happen at the political level, at the province or the feds, but he wouldn't be aware of that, so we couldn't say for sure.
So the follow-up on that, and it's kind of getting off the topic a bit, but it isn't. So your worship, the announcement earlier this week, I think it was, for the program for the university students, which, how can I say it? It sounds like they're paying kids to sit on their hands and go home for the summer. But wouldn't that be, I mean, they've changed their mind on several of these programs when they announced them. Surely we could get some work out of these kids. I mean, something, I mean, environmental cleanup, something, rather than just send them home to sit on their hands. Has any discussion like that taken place at, you know, in some of the other places where you sit?
Well, I guess the idea is if you can provide them a job that is safe, then by all means. But what I think what that's covering is the fact that these programs are not running, that we don't need extra park staff. I mean, maybe we will, I don't know, but you know, those types of things. So I think where they are able to work, they work. Where they're not, it's a different story.
Well, but they are all able to work, right? And
Yes,
we got farms begging for hired hands. We've got fish plants looking for hired hands. And we've got all kinds of beaches and harbors and lakes and things that could stand a good cleanup. And the point is, why not revisit that on the part of the federal government and create a Canada-wide youth environmental cleanup program and hire them under that, and give us the opportunity to go out and hire them and fund it, rather than, it's a waste of money just to, in many, no one seems to ask those kind of questions when the Prime Minister makes his announcements. I don't know, maybe I got it all wrong, but it sounds like the program basically, he was talking about that again today. And it's basically, look, these poor souls, they have to be able to come to school whole, and they can't work. And well, that's baloney about not being able to work. They can work. I mean, there's things you can do. Surely go out and clean up a beach and socially distance yourself, for instance. That's what I'm wondering. And so our rec department, for instance, if it were funded under a program like that, could go out and hire a bunch of people to do good things around the community. Maybe the kids themselves would come up with ideas about what they can do that are environmentally positive, instead of having them sit home on their hands. That's all I got to say.
I think what they're saying is, if there's a program out there that you can hire them for, you should be paying them for it. They're not going to pay us to hire. That's the problem. They're talking about the jobs that aren't filled, the kids that aren't getting jobs, because there are jobs out there. There's no doubt about it. But I can look into it more and see what's. I got a call with FCM tomorrow, so I'll check on that.
Yeah.
They'll have some good solid answers on that. Okay, we good? Keep going there, Jer.
Okay. So I think I left off with the revenue adjustments of 169,000 for because of COVID-19 and things not opening or things being shut down. Transit parking, Sweeney's Museum, marina gas and sales. So then we looked at expenses related to the COVID-19 shutdown. And so we had a lot of conferences and notifications that conferences were canceled, like the FCM conference, the CAMA conferences, even the different provincial conferences. So looking to reduce council travel and admin travel. Those are directors, I guess, involved there, and the councilors. Grants organization. I know in the past there's been a number of grants that were given out for summer events. So the assumption here is that we might be able to reduce the grants by 15,000 because there won't be those programs and those events won't be happening this summer. Transit, we shut that down for the summer, so we've got some savings there. Parking enforcement as well has been shut down, kind of thing. So no revenues there, but no expenses as well. Yes to funding. I've talked to Neil. The 2 events that he was looking for, the extra 14,000, were pushed out another year, so they aren't required in the current year. The marketing levy. That's typical what we would get for a couple, 3-4 months. So reducing the marketing levy, and also talked with the facade program, and they said with businesses in the shape they're in, we could certainly reduce the facade program down to 50 from the current 75 funding. So that would knock the facade program down to 50. So there's still 50,000 for that program. Recreation. We're suggesting or looking at in our heads that we would propose 290,000 to Frank from the last year's 311, knowing that programs do cost money and that there should be fewer programs run this summer. Parks, again, the seasonal staff, so those are students and temporary and green team, those types of positions. We wouldn't be hiring for those at this point. And in Communities in Bloom, I would have to think that their travel would be reduced as well. So I think a few years ago we bumped that up to by $5,000 to allow them to attend the national conferences. So we're thinking that won't be required this year as well. The waterfront gas and diesel, those are actually just the expense side of the sales. So we buy the gas from the wholesaler and have it there available and provided as a service. So those purchases won't be required there as well. And then not opening the Sweeney's Museum this summer. So we pay a number of people to operate that for the varied hours that we have and the weekends that we have it open. So cost savings there. So we're looking at about $271,000 in cost savings related to the situation that we're in with COVID-19. So what I do want to point out is we do end up with a balanced budget at the bottom, but we reduced revenues by 169,000, but expenses by 270,000 because of COVID-19. So COVID-19 right now is looking to save us $100,000 in all the things that we're not doing. And that would be typical because governments do things that typically don't make money. So when things are shut down for the summer, we don't have those costs. Other expense reductions, talking with directors are listed below that. So part of our IT revamp was hiring an IT person full-time to work in the town and take care of all the town's operations. So that position's deferred a few months. And I'm quite detailed here for you, so I'll flip through it pretty quick, but like expense lines for other admin, general government entertainment, our website expense, and admin building repairs. Small adjustments there, but talking to the people that are involved with those, whether the directors or myself or Jeff, think we can do those things. Again, more training for enforcement. There's still a bit of training for them, but budgeted, but not as much. looking for a fire chief. That's not been filled yet, and not looking to. We don't think it'll be filled for a bit of time, so deferring the salary adjustments for that. Fire negotiation, we had a bit of a larger budget last year where things were still being worked out. So we're thinking this year we can reduce that number. There's still some budget there, but not the amount that was last year. And the same with volunteer fireman clothing. Reduced their budget down to 30,000. We had 38,000 last year, but looking at the last couple of years, we've only spent 23 and 18,000 respectively. So we're thinking that 30,000 should be plenty for the current year. Hopefully we get a new chief, and we're looking for more. We have more volunteers and we need to get more clothing. So still have 30,000 in there for that. The building inspector's position that we're looking to hire, so that hasn't been done yet. And again, deferred that out, so it wouldn't be the full year that we have in there. So reduce that budget by about 20,000, but they're still looking to hire later in the year. The project coordinator that we have working with our engineers to come to the 341, I had them in as an engineering or an operating cost. When in actual fact, because we've hired them just to work on capital projects, that full position can be charged off to the capital project lines. So he'll be working on 3 to 4 big projects. So each of those projects might get $10,000 or $15,000 of his salary put towards it. Talked with Chad on paving and patching, lots of curb replacement, reduced those budgets a little bit. And he was fine doing that because we have increased the paving in the capital side. So he's able to pave more streets instead of just going and patch them. So he's comfortable and okay for this year to reduce the paving, patching, and those budgets down a bit. We still have, a substantial amount of money in those budgets for him to use. Just knock them down a little bit. Street sweeper maintenance and small tools also in the transportation side. We're able to knock the street sweeper maintenance down a bit, we felt, because we have a relatively new street sweeper now. So the maintenance should come down compared to what we were paying on our older machines. Talked with Rob about environmental health. So again, some training, reduction, some off supplies, even chemicals and landfill closure. He can manage to tighten up in those areas for this year for us. And some of the things that just won't get done because of the situation we're in for the summer. So he's reducing those expenses. On the compost, we bought a screener. So in the past, we had a $20,000 budget to hire a company to come in and do screening for us once a year for a few weeks. So we reduced the 20 down to 5, leaving 5 there for expenses to run our own screener. Knocked the study, excuse me, knocked the study budget down. Sorry about that. Knocked some of the studies back that just won't get done, or staff don't have time to organize this year. So we still have 45,000 in the budget for the studies. So the couple studies that are important to council that we need to get done can still get done. You'll see the doctor search and the medical clinic. You'll see those on the right side of the right column, and that's because I got the budgets from our partners on those, and they need more money than what was in the original budget. So doctor search is up to 20,000 for the current year. The airport got knocked down 7, so I think we're at 160 now, so the 167. Town fair expenses, we knocked those back by 20,000, and the medical clinics have to increase the budget by 40. And that's yeah. So our 2 clinics will cost us 60,000 for the year. The last thing was the Killen Wharfs, some different expenses in that there, but again, talking with Todd, Chad, and they feel they won't get some of the stuff they want to get done this summer, so they were able to knock 8,000 off of it. I also looked at all of our various gas and heating budget lines, and so with the price of fuel and things at this point, I was comfortable knocking essentially about another $30,000 off of the numerous gas and heating oil budget lines to bring us down to where we need to be. So at the very bottom in the summary, you'll see that we had a opening budget deficit, or all-in budget of 341. We took out more revenue of 169. Then we reduced the expenses because of COVID for 271. Did other expense adjustments of 285, but had to add 47 in the expense lines as well. So as our budget sits right now, we've got a balanced budget with a zero surplus, with no tax increases and similar fees as prior years.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim. You're on mute, though. You have to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jerry, thank you very much. That's outstanding. When I was looking at it earlier, I couldn't believe the detail involved to balance the budget. I guess philosophically, even and I'll take comment and criticism from my fellow councillors. We have to budget for a surplus, and so I would be looking to raise the rate enough that we get a surplus, or however we would organize that. I just feel, and I know times are tough, but I'm just, as I said, just looking for a comment to get discussion going. So thank you. At this point, thank you very much. Again, thanks, Jerry and staff.
Wade?
We can't, not in this environment. Next time we could raise the rate. This time, austerity is what we need. I'm sorry, but we do. We have people who are going to go through an awfully hard time in this area, and in fact, all over the world, all over the province, all over the country. We can't raise the rates, not this time through. I'm sorry, but I would never support any kind of a rate increase this time.
But you all done, Wade?
Yep, go ahead, Phil.
I'm kind of just like to piggyback on what Wade said. Is this year's kind of an anomaly anyway, so I think I looked at some of the numbers there, and maybe when we go in camera, we might discuss another situation, but I can see some, especially to grant to organizations, I think we can see some further savings in there. And I think there's going to be some other savings. I know there's going to be other expenses, but I think this is a year just to balance it. And then I know what Jim's saying, that you want to have a cushion there, but this is not the same field that we played on last year at this time either. And that's it for me, Your Worship. And Jerry, you did a very good job. It's excellent presentation.
Excellent. Dawn, Steve, did you have your hand up? Dawn and then Steve?
I think it's important to keep a bottom line, which he did already, and he gave us a really great balanced budget. I do like how he wrote down all the questions that I would have came up with are answered in that sheet that you passed out. I read through each item. I think at this particular moment, we can't make any drastic changes to taxes or any of that particular stuff. So I would be saying exactly what Wade's saying. We need to, at least in this crazy year, we need to keep just a balanced budget is fine. Thank you.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, great job, Jerry. Very detailed. Appreciate that.
Is your phone and your computer on?
Nope, just my phone. It should be.
Hang on 1 second. What have we got there, Lindsay?
Can you hear that? It's Steve's phone, I think.
Is it just bad audio, is it?
Yeah, we can't. Like a foghorn. Okay, go ahead. We're good now.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I'd just like to say thanks to Jerry. Very detailed for someone who's new to the table. You answered all of my questions that I had, so great job in balancing things off. But I have to agree with Wade too. I think this is a bad time to be looking into things like that. You know, with everything going on, you see different municipalities giving tax breaks and stuff, and I don't know if move to increase anything. So I'm on board with Wade. Sorry, Jim.
Okay, anybody else?
That's okay, Steve. I expected that response, and I'm happy and comfortable with that response, because I know that even though we only had a surplus last year of $2,000 to $3,000, we spent money out of the mayor's fund, et cetera, for all during the year. So balanced budget is nice. It's good for our to show our municipality, the Department of Municipal Affairs, that we can balance a budget and we get good reports. So I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, Cliff?
You notice I raised that figure. That's the pointing finger. This one here? No.
That will be on social media.
I've got two points on that, and I'm always at odds with the rest of you anyway. So, Your Worship, the program that was announced this morning by the province, does that only apply to commercial, or is it commercial and residential in terms of being able to defer and then pay back over time?
Okay. So the 380 million is for businesses and residential. It's not a deferral. So we will set up a 6-month payment plan for anybody that qualifies. So again, it's not a free for all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we did, so the point is that from the point of view of hardship, if that's what's driving the discussion here, it would not be a hardship if that program's available in terms of if you could time to pay that increase if you had an increase in taxes put on this year because of the program. All right.
You're talking about increasing this year, you said?
If you increase the taxes this year, you could mitigate your immediate financial problems created by COVID by taking advantage of the program.
Yeah, you don't have to increase your taxes to do that.
I'm not saying you have to increase them. I'm saying if you did increase your taxes,
yes,
it's not, you can mitigate any difficulty that you're facing as a result of COVID because of those by taking advantage of the program. I think I'm right on that one. So really, the idea of most of you have expressed with respect that you wouldn't want to put extra strain on people at this point in time. But because of the program, there would not be an extra strain, which could be taken advantage of.
But if your taxes go up,
yeah,
you're still going to have to pay that much more in the end.
In the future, right? Yeah.
Yeah. After 6 months, you're going to have to start paying. And
yes,
there's
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the reason given for not putting the taxes up is, has been stated to be because it would create a strain on people now. There's a program available to eliminate the immediate strain of the COVID increase, COVID problem, right?
What I think what we're saying is, if you qualify to be part of this program, which means you are not able to pay your taxes, then I would suggest the last thing we want to do is add to the number that you can't pay.
Okay, so how many people are going to qualify? What are going to be the standards to determine whether you qualify or not? For instance, are Jim and I going to qualify?
Doubtful.
How are you going to determine that one?
Well, we have, they're working on that policy. And
what do you think?
no, I'm going to say that if if you qualify, not for all, but for some of the programs federally where your business has been shut down, and you have no revenue, then certainly you qualify.
All right, I'm going to let you go, but I can tell you this, right? I probably qualify 3 different ways to get it, or 2 different ways for sure to take advantage of it. I'm not even going to do it, but I could. It's that wide open, frankly. I have a company and I have myself personally. I'm at home looking after my wife because of the COVID prices instead of working. That's what I'm doing. That qualifies me. I get $2,000 a month out of that one, I think.
So it's not going to be as simple as that. You're going to have to prove that you can't pay. Jeff, were you going to say something?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is a draft policy that was developed, I understand, by AMA that Jerry and I participated in a meeting this morning to understand more about the program as it's proposed and the policy as it's proposed. But at the end of the day, the policy that whether or not the program is adopted in town and what policy would accompany it and govern it is up to this council. So there's certainly a model there to be followed. And Jerry and I have had a meeting once earlier today to just talk about that, because the question Cliff raises around qualifying for it, we need to be very clear about that. And at the same time, if we're going to implement the program, it needs to be targeted towards those that need it. So there's some work to be done there yet, but that will be perhaps our next meeting we get together. There will be a revised draft of that draft policy based on some feedback they received today. So I'm looking forward to going through that with you. But as far as what the criteria is, there is guidance on that, but there's no decision outside of what this council decides.
Yeah, we decide what it looks like, but what we're trying to do in delivering that policy is to get as many municipalities as possible to adopt it, because for many reasons. We wanted a deferral for 6 months. We didn't get it, which I think is fine. Yeah, so that would have been, the qualifications would have been standard across the province. Right now, you'll have one municipality doing one thing and their neighbor doing another. And you know how that works. When you provide most of the services, it's more difficult to just ease up on things when you don't. Go ahead, Jeff.
It's in effect a loan, is it not?
It is.
Oh, it's absolutely.
It is 100% a loan, and it is an individual municipality decision, just as setting your tax rates and every other policy you set is that you do as a council is at your discretion. So there is certainly a desire at the provincial level to have consistency municipality to municipality, but it is your individual decision. And one of the things that Jerry and I are looking at is, how do we ensure that the loan opportunity is available to those that need it, because there's a limited pot of money to backstop it. So we put in an estimate based on criteria that we were provided by NSFM. We estimated what the need would be in our town, and essentially we've got to try and manage the criteria to not exceed that limit, because the funding will run out at the provincial level if everyone oversubscribes it. So we got to do a little bit of a delicate dance there. But at the end of the day, Councillor Hood is correct. It is a loan. There is interest associated with it. It's repayable over 24 months of payments, and the upper limit is what your tax bill is in terms of what you're eligible for.
That's where I wanted to get to with the conversation, Your Worship. It's this qualification thing. Has anyone talked about using the formula that we use for determining? We have an income-based formula that we use for giving exemptions to widows and.
Well, that's
for residents.
Low income. You're talking about low income.
Low income.
The low income individuals we can defer those. That's the only one we can. But we can also set what low income is.
Yeah, we have discretion over that. That's what I'm getting
Yeah.
at.
We have one of the most generous, sorry, cut you off there. I was just going
No,
to say
go
we have
ahead.
one of the most generous programs for low income tax exemption of any municipality in the province.
Yeah, I saw today, Jeff. I think Clark's Harbor, what are we in the $27,000 range? And I think some of the other units are, I think 22 was a popular number.
Yeah.
I'm going to be supporting the motion, Your Worship, when it comes to a vote. Not to increase taxes.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a motion.
I thought, aren't we in question? What?
No, Jim just threw it out there. I don't think it was a motion. He just asked what we thought. So,
Your Worship.
Go ahead, Bill. Yeah.
There will be some residents that will see an increase in their taxes, because just because we're not increasing the tax rate doesn't mean they're not getting their taxes increased. If Jerry said, and if I could be mistaken, if he said the residential rate went up an average of 2%, somebody could have stayed flat. Somebody could have went up 4 or 5%, right? So they will be paying more than they did the year before if they're in that category.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, no, just to comment on that. I mean, some of that 2% increase overall for residential is also new construction. So it's not like we had a lot of houses out there with increased assessments, or if, you know, with the cap, as houses sell, the cap gets removed and the new setting or new amount is set. So those types of things happen. So I don't anticipate a lot of people having 5 or 6% increases in their tax bill from year over year. They're still living there. They still have the cap.
Good.
Good. Okay. Anybody else?
So do you wish, Your Worship, a motion to approve the budget, the draft budget, to make it, to approve the draft budget as prepared and submitted today?
So what do you, Jerry and, yeah, okay. What do you, Jerry and Jeff, what do you think? This is the first time we've seen it, so I don't know what your expectations are.
Well, to be honest, my expectation wasn't a motion to approve it. But you know, I will repeat what many of you have said, is that Jerry's done a phenomenal job this year, and frankly done all the work with the directors in terms of bringing you this solution. But I think you should take the pages, go away with them, and we'll put it on our next agenda. And if there are any questions that arise, of course, we can deal with them in the interim, or we can deal with them then. And if people are comfortable with the budget, then a motion at that time might be appropriate. I would say that I've said jokingly at times in the past that Jerry can land this budget on a dime. It looks like you'll have to this year.
For sure. Yeah.
Just one more. Just to add to that, directors were, you know, really helpful and really cooperative this year. You know, penny pinching where they can. And I just want to mention, for the sake of you all, that I'm close to having a similar presentation or similar situation or similar status for the water utility. So hopefully in the next week or so, I'll have the water utility budget ready for you as well.
Thank you, Jerry.
Is there a deadline? Is there a deadline, Jeff, that you want us to approve this budget?
End of May would be nice.
Yeah. So I think for several years now we've targeted the May council meeting, the regular council meeting. So I think if we meet again before that, we'll put it on the agenda for discussion, because I never want to limit your discussion on the budget. It's your most important policy document on an annual basis. So, but I think if we target the regular council meeting for May for the approval, that would certainly work fine with us.
Agreed.
Good stuff. Okay, so anybody else on the budget before we move on? Great work, Jerry. Man, that's awesome. All right, we're good. Nova Scotia Municipalities joint application for electric vehicle infrastructure funding. Yeah,
Yeah, Your Worship, I was going to suggest that perhaps to take a pass on that this year, and for a couple of reasons. One is we have a few stations in town that we own and have received, frankly, under better terms than this. And we've most recently seen a charging station installed on Stars Road by the private sector. So I think at this point, given the level of demand that we've experienced, given the differences this year with our community and our financial reality, it might be well, my advice that we not participate this time, but that we certainly should be open to and supportive of electric vehicles.
thank you. I'm glad you said that because I read it and I kind of thought that's a little bit much. I was kind of hoping they'd put them in if they wanted them here. But yeah, we probably need more in the future. Jim?
I just have one comment. Jeff, what about Collins Street parking lot? There are 2 stations there, 2 charging stations. That's one for Tesla and one for everybody else. I didn't want to lose any funding possibilities if we ever destroy that or demolish that building. And I just want to make sure that that we're ahead of the game, sort of thing. Just thinking about the Collins Street parking lot and the 2 charging stations there. Just wondering if we ever just take the building down, we'll have to be sure and reestablish those charging stations somewhere in that parking lot.
For sure, for sure.
Okay, that's good. That's all I was interested in. I support Jeff's presentation.
Jeff, do we have any, Cliff, do we have any data on how much usage those things are getting?
I don't have any data on that.
Is there a way for us to get data on it? They must be metered, I would think.
That's a really good question.
I can ask her.
No,
I'll just
not
ask her.
the ones that are proposed, the ones that we have, I think he's asking about, right? The ones at Killam's and the one at Collins Street?
Because that speaks to need.
Yep.
When they make a program out of this, why would we take advantage of a program? In fact, we're more than supplying the need already.
Yeah. Others have different experience probably, but I've never seen a vehicle attached to any of our chargers, nor the private sector charger on Stars Road. So I think there's work to be done.
Jim, I'm not trying to be nasty here, but I'm asking a simple question. Why would we even bother? I think we should obviously take a pass on this program. We're not even using what we have that much.
Yeah, I think we all agree.
Yeah,
Nobody's just have them because, from the tourism point of view, people are driving these vehicles and some of them make plans and eventually that'll pick up and be more busy. But I think right now I support the recommendation here from staff that we take a pass on this.
Yeah, with fuel prices where they are today, the incentives to purchase a electric vehicle are diminished unless there's some incentives provided by government, and that isn't the case right now.
Incentives to go out and buy a Dodge Hemi Ram or something.
Okay, so taxi licensing extensions.
Your Worship, came to our attention, I guess it came to your attention, and you brought it to my attention that our taxi licenses were due to expire the end of this month. And given the current situation with COVID-19, I'm suggesting that we extend taxi licenses for 2 months, allowing our inspector to return to work under safer conditions and carry out that work. I don't perceive that puts any risk in the community at all. So that's my recommendation. Any new licenses, of course, would have to go through the application process, and we'll deal with that. But as far as renewing licenses, it would just simply be to extend for 2 months.
So you're looking at the end of June, a motion for
I'll
the
make
end
a
of
motion that we approve that recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
Jeff, so is the motion the end of June?
Yes.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any more discussion on that?
Question.
All
Question.
those in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Pension transfer update.
Your worship, that one is just simply to advise you that we heard from our pension consultants earlier this week and just a couple days ago, and the vote that was taken of the employees, that is a required step in the transfer process, that was carried out, and I believe the 17th of April was the closing date. The votes were all sent to Eckler, our pension consultants, and they've gotten back to us with the results. The results were 70 ballots were returned, 61 were in support, 8 were not in support, and 1 was a spoiled ballot. And so that clears a hurdle with the employees towards moving towards that transfer. And so the next step will be that our consultants will arrange a meeting, probably a virtual meeting for Jody and I to discuss the administrative details with the PSSP in terms of them getting to understand who we are and what our financial system is and how we report and remit pension contributions, and they'll tell us what their expectations are, and we'll just have a little FaceTime. We are in line to be considered later this fall, and we'll probably get an update on that timeline.
Somebody at the airport? That clip flying overhead?
I think Jim's on the drag strip.
That's me.
So we'll get a better idea what the timeline is and any other requirements administratively through the process. And as we get closer to the date when they're willing or ready, I guess, to deal with us, we'll get a final calculation on exactly what the cost would be, and there will be a final decision for council at that time.
Good stuff. Questions for Jeff?
Jeff, do we need a motion or anything, or is this just a step in the process as you've indicated?
This is just an update. There's no action required. It's just to inform you that that hurdle has been crossed.
Okay,
Thank you.
reports. Committee of the Whole, Deputy, you're on.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make a motion that council consider at the budget meeting and if deemed advisable, lower the current interest rate of 14% to 10%.
Second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, anyone?
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Your Worship, I'll move that for April, May, and June of 2020, will allow property owners for tax arrears payment arrangements. If the required monthly payments, interest will continue to accrue on all outstanding balances on a monthly basis. And I thought we had a number in there for monthly payments, I thought at one time, but, or is that good there, Jeff?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part of that.
Well, I thought it says that with tax arrear payments, arrangements to skip the required monthly payments. Is there a number in there that we said?
No, there's no required payments. Obviously, the property owners would be able to make payments if they were able to and wish to, in order to bring down their outstanding balance and, as a result, the balance that's subject to interest charge.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I have a question, Jeff.
Yep.
Says April, May, and June.
Yes.
Should it be May, June, July?
No. So the payments are due at the end of the month. If this passes, then there'll be no payment required this month.
Gotcha. So you haven't, okay, good. All right. All right.
So,
Go ahead, Cliff.
Jeff, the interim bills that have gone out, are they for a stated number on, or are they just a percentage of the total year?
The interim bills are for, the way we do those is 60% of the tax bill that would be owed this year based on this year's assessment and last year's tax rate.
Okay.
Good.
I just have a question, Jeff. Have you had any? Have we received any requests to allow the this? Has anybody asked to delay their payment?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Question, Your Worship.
Question.
Don?
Don. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Good, Deputy?
That's it, Your Worship.
Okay.
Aye.
Any questions for committee chairs? Good. Additions. So I have the tender results.
So Your Worship, Mark Brophy has a memo in the package, and it's regarding the second floor renovations at the fire hall. So as he says in his memo, the tender was posted on the Nova Scotia procurement website on March 26th. Tender closed on April 23rd, and there were 3 compliant bids received. There was 1 non-compliant bid, as you can see in the memo. The scope of the work consists of second floor renovation, spray fireproofing between the first and second level, and life safety upgrades. So the low bid was from Garian Construction in the amount of $858,470. And that number is not inclusive of HST. And so the engineer is recommending the award to Garian Construction for that amount.
So
So
moved.
moved, Your Worship.
Oh, second.
Okay, moved by Cliff, second by Dawn.
Question.
Mark, did you, okay. Mark's good then?
Yep.
You good, Mark?
One thing, well, Jeff didn't mention, it wasn't actually in the memo, that the air conditioning in the second floor that was requested is included in that number.
Oh,
Oh, wonderful, wonderful,
pretty good.
perfect.
Good, yeah. Thank
I'll
you
tell
for your
you.
good work, Mark.
Yes,
Yes.
very much so. Mark always brings us little bonuses.
So we had in the tender document a 5-month completion, and with COVID, that may be a little bit of a challenge, where you have to do work one after another as opposed to side by side. So we'll hope for the best. There's only one subcontractor that I'm aware of is from out of town, and so we're putting some people to work.
Good.
Excellent.
Good job, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Good
Thank you very
stuff,
much.
folks. Okay, so all we have left, unless there's anything else, is in camera. We're good to go in camera. Can I have a motion?
So move.
So
Thank you. All those